Joining me live is the Honourable Dame Quentin Bryce, who served as the 25th Governor-General of Australia. Thanks so much for your time. It was almost 10 years ago that we were at that girls' school in Tarancot. Do you remember what that was like? Do you remember the hope?
Oh, absolutely. Of course I do, Laura. And when I look at the film and I see the vivacity amongst those girls, their enthusiasm, the joie de vivre, it says everything really about the power of education, opening up opportunities. And it was a very memorable occasion. I think of too how proud the governor of Oruzgan province was about that development, as was every single leader, and they were all men at official levels whom I met in Afghanistan across several visits there, including President Karzai. They were always very keen to impress upon me what advances were being made for girls' education, particularly. But one of the things that you learn is that you need to see things for yourself. There's nothing like that, and those marvellous young ones having all the fun and joy of being together at school, what that was going to mean for their lives and their futures.
Yeah, it was palpable at the time. And
it was made possible by Australian aid, by the huge effort of our wonderful servicemen there who actually built that building, the input from Australians who were supporting the cause of human rights for women in Afghanistan, non-government organisations, also the Australian aid. So it symbolised enormous contribution and commitment and care for opportunities for women and girls and their futures in Afghanistan. I think it was 8 years ago, and how I would love to see how they're going now, because it would have made such a difference to their world to be in an environment about learning, learning to learn, learning to read, literacy, books, changing their lives, and the togetherness of it too, being in those important, influential years of girlhood in a learning environment.
And those girls would now be young women. We don't know what has become of them, but we can only hope that they were able to use some of this education. When you saw these pictures out of Kabul this week with the Taliban seizing control of the country, how did you feel?
Oh, very gravely troubled and deeply disturbed, yes. Very much so, concerned about their safety, their security, the risk of losing so many of the gains that have been made for them. We hear different messages about this, but we have to wait and see. But we have to make sure also that their voices are heard and that our voices are heard too, and that the statements that we hear about maintaining the advances, the opportunities, the leadership for women that's developed in the last decade and more years, that the promises are fulfilled. Our country, the Afghani people, have invested so much in education and health and opportunities for girls. We must do everything we can using diplomatic pressure, our own voices too, at a grassroots level, to see that what we've invested is fulfilled for them.
Indeed. Quentin Bryce, I can hear the emotion in your voice, and I share that. I only went to Afghanistan once for around 3 weeks. You went 4 times while you were Governor-General. Why did Afghanistan have such an impact on you personally?
Well, it was about seeing for myself the lives of people in Afghanistan. I'm always committed to engaging as deeply as I can into the opportunities for women and girls. The absolutely key issue being education, but also in employment, in health, their well-being. You know, Australia has a wonderful reputation internationally over, nearly a century now, our wonderful Australian women's movement in advocacy for the recognition of the human rights of women and girls. But also, there are so many memories rushing through my heart and my mind at this time. Memories of our wonderful servicemen and women whom I saw there on very many occasions. I'm thinking particularly of the young soldiers I watched, teaching young Afghani men basic mathematical skills so that they could go on and be trained in construction roles to be able to build things for themselves, plumbing and carpentry and all those practical skills so that they could become part of building schools, infrastructure for their own communities. And I think 2 of our wonderful servicemen and women in the medical field, caring for injured soldiers, and working with the Dutch in the wonderful hospital at Taliban the first time that I went there. And I think of the courage of the soldiers whom I saw heading off to work in the most dangerous, frightening circumstances to detect those cruel weapons, those IEDs that caused deaths and injuries that we will never forget for so many of our remarkable servicemen and women who served there. I remember how courteous and welcoming they were to me, particularly on my first visit there, when I was feeling a little nervous and apprehensive about the responsibilities that I had, having the privilege of visiting the base at Tarankot. And I saw their mateship, their joie de vivre, their commitment shining through, the commitment they had to the Afghani people, engaging in these issues that we're talking about the future of the country, the young ones, the women, the families.
Well, Quentin Bryce, we may have aged 10 years, but your memories have certainly not aged a day. I thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yes, and can I just add to the very special memory I had, Laura, of being there for an Anzac Day dawn service.
Yes.
And to be with those marvellous servicemen and women whom I call the modern Anzacs. But it's good to talk to you again too. Thank you.
We were both at that Anzac Day ceremony in Tarankot, I believe. So that is certainly a memory seared in my mind as well. Quentin Bryce, lovely to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Laura.